Table Mountain shelters an ancient floral kingdom, the Cape Floristic region, hosting over 2,200 endemic plant species, more species per square kilometer than almost any other place on Earth. Do you know that the Blyde River Canyon hides mirror-like pools and Burke's Luck potholes carved into white stone, while Augrabies Falls can expel spray visible dozens of kilometers away, revealing South Africa's extremes from serene to supremely violent. Tsitsikamma National Park protects a rare coastal temperate rainforest that plunges into the Indian Ocean, one of the few places on Earth where forest meets sea so directly. Do you know that Tsitsikamma's ancient yellow woods tower over cliff-top trails and feed waterfalls that fall straight into the surf? Here the otter trail threads along granite headlands and through indigenous forests, forcing hikers to trade sandy beaches for moss-draped canopies. The park's suspension bridge at Storm's River mouth sways above a deep gorge, offering a vertiginous view of waves carving rock over millennia. Beneath the cliffs, a marine-protected area shelters kelp forests, dolphins, and seasonal whales, a living corridor that links terrestrial and oceanic life. Black oyster catchers and African blackfish share tidal pools with kelp crabs, while ancient shipwrecks whisper of sailors who misjudge these rocky shoals. Walk the forest paths and you'll pass the big tree, a colossal yellowwood whose rings record centuries of fire, flood, and human presence. Fynbos slopes meet canopy understories here, creating botanical mosaics that host species found nowhere else on the planet. Local Xhosa traditions and early European explorers both left traces, naming rivers, mapping coves, and learning quickly that this coastline is both bountiful and unforgiving. Yet the same cliffs that bred caution also fostered conservation, as people recognized the need to protect freshwater springs and fishing grounds. From Tsitsikamma, the garden route unfolds east and west, with Knysna's estuary and Plettenberg Bay's beaches succeeding one another, like chapters in a natural epic. Trails link these places, inviting travelers to follow rivers inland or to ride the coastal winds toward more secluded coves. In a single breath, you can taste salt, smell damp earth, and hear ancient trees creak, a sensory archive that records the environmental history of South Africa's southeast. Here the garden route harbors coastal temperate forests that sink into turquoise estuaries, and its indigenous milkwood trees can live for over 1,000 years. Do you know that Knysna heads funnel ocean currents into a sheltered lagoon, creating tidal flows that shape unique marine life? Knysna's famous oysters taste of both sea and river, a flavor forged by that rare mix. Fisherfolk pass down secret oyster harvesting rhythms that still mark the lagoon's calendar. A short drive east brings you to Pilanesberg Bay, where dolphins braid the surf at dawn. On certain winters, southern right whales glide just beyond the breakers, their blows visible from the cliffs. Robert Peninsula is a fossil-rich ridge where seals lounge and ancient dunes hold secrets of shifting coastlanes. Hikers find dramatic viewpoints that stitch the coast to offshore islands, teeming with birdlife. Further along, Tsitsikamma's indigenous forest plunges to the sea at the storm's river mouth. A suspension bridge here trembles above a gorge carved over millennia by relentless waves and torrents. This coastline is not just pretty, it is a biodiversity corridor linking mountain fynbos to marine sanctuaries. Endemic plant species cling to cliff faces while kelp forests below shelter juvenile fish. Locals route their lives around tides, estuaries, and mountain passes, blending nautical skill with forest lore. Artisans in small towns shape souvenirs from kelp-dried driftwood and the tannins of indigenous barks. Turning inland, the route drifts toward Untouched, where ostrich farms mark the transition from Green Coast to Karoo. This shift from rainforest to semi-desert illustrates why the garden route is a corridor of contrasts. Conservation efforts along the route weave community projects with strict marine protection zones. Volunteers patrol dunes, monitor nesting turtles, and translocate seedlings of threatened fynbos species. The road itself curves like a ribbon through lagoons, estuaries, and mountain passes. Each bend offers a new species, a new story, and often a chef turning local bounty into coastal cuisine. But beneath that cuisine and calm facades ancient geological forces are still shaping cliffs and channels. Sani Pass cuts a jagged trail through the Drakensberg and rises to 2,876 meters, making it the highest vehicular pass in southern Africa. Do you know that Sani Pass once served as a vital trading route between Basotho traders and coastal merchants, and that its steep hairpins can claim cars 1 minute and transform into alpine meadows the next? From the South African side near Underberg, the gravel road climbs relentlessly, exposing sculpted rock faces and seasonal waterfalls. At the summit, the notorious Sani Top Chalet perches like a sentinel, claiming the title of the highest pub in Africa and pouring pints to visitors wrapped in mountain mist. Every bend offers a new panorama: basalt cliffs, sudden patches of snow in winter, and a distant view of Lesotho's highlands, cut like a patchwork. Local guides know its hidden hazards and secret viewpoints, and their stories stitch Sani Pass to nearby attractions such as the Ukhahlamba-Drakensberg Falls and the Amphitheatre Ridge. The pass's geology tells an older story, where ancient lava flows cooled into steep escarpments that now funnel storms into dramatic cloudscapes. Wildflowers creep into crevices in summer, and small herds of mountain ponies and eagles map their territories along the ridgelines. Travel here is as much cultural as it is scenic. Basotho villages clinging to the high plateaus have exchanged goods and tales across this route for centuries. That human thread continues today with herdsmen, shepherds, and cross-border traders who navigate narrow ledges to reach market and medicine. Sani Pass connects to the Drakensberg's network of hikes, meaning a day's drive can lead directly into multi-day trails toward the amphitheatre. Those trails, in turn, echo with the footsteps of early explorers and climbers, linking the pass to the wider story of South Africa's mountain heritage. In winter, the pass becomes a frozen corridor, where 4x4s and experienced drivers test both skill and nerve against snow and ice. In summer, thunderclouds drum across the escarpment, and sudden storms can turn dusty ruts into slick rivers within minutes. Photographers chase the low light that slices across the rocks at dawn, and filmmakers have long favored Sani Pass for its dramatic, cinematic backdrops. Yet beyond spectacle, conservationists focus on protecting fragile alpine fynbos pockets and the seasonal waterways that feed both people and livestock. Passing through Sani feels like crossing a threshold from the rolling farmlands into an altitude that reshapes climate, culture, and even language. The journey ends not at the summit alone, but continues down into Lesotho, where the landscape opens into plateaus dotted with stone houses and wide skies. For travelers who seek more than a postcard, Sani Pass offers tight turns, tall tales, and a chance to step into a landscape that still moves with the rhythms of mountain life. The Cape Winelands sit within one of only a handful of regions worldwide where a Mediterranean climate overlaps with the Cape floristic region, producing vineyards hemmed by the planet's most concentrated fynbos biodiversity. Do you know that in the Cape Winelands, around Stellenbosch and Franschhoek, grape varieties thrive on soils older than many mountain ranges, some traces stretching back millions of years? Rolling vineyards climb sunlit slopes, their rows tracing contours carved by ancient seas. Stone manor houses and Cape Dutch homesteads stand as testimonies to a wine culture that fused European technique with uniquely South African terroir. Taste in these valleys is a map of migration. French Huguenots planting heritage vines, Khoisan names lingering in riverbeds, and modern vintners experimenting with Chenin Blanc and Pinot d'Age. Each estate offers not just wine, but a living archive where cellar doors open onto gardens of proteas and oaks, and wine barrels hum with stories of harvests and droughts. From Stellenbosch, you can trace the land downhill toward the cool maritime influence of False Bay, where sea breezes temper ripening grapes and sculpt delicate acidity into the wines. Drive south, and the landscape slips into Franschhoek, where a French culinary thread stitches together tasting rooms and award-winning restaurants. Walking between estates, you'll see how vineyards connect like green ribbons to neighboring nature reserves, allowing endemic birds and butterflies to traverse the countryside. Conservation-minded farms have turned hedgerows and wetlands into corridors that protect fynbos, while improving soil health and grape quality. In autumn, the palette shifts to amber and rust, and harvest festivals transform sleepy lanes into lively markets of barrel tastings and folklore. But beyond the tasting rooms, there are quieter wonders. Cellar masters still consult weather lore, and artisanal coopers handcraft barrels according to techniques passed down through generations. The Cape Winelands are a place where geology writes flavor. Granite and piedstone each leave their signature in a glass. And just when you think you have the story of a vineyard figured out, a nearby mountain farm will reveal a microclimate that flips the script on what that variety can do. Later in the film, we will follow one such microclimate, from sun-soaked slope to chilled valley floor, uncovering the tiny decisions that make world-class wines. You'll meet growers who read the land like a score, and chefs who pair not just food, but the history of place with every pour. Table Mountain's fynbos supports over 2,000 plants, 2/3 found nowhere else on Earth. Do you know Bo-Kaap, perched on the eastern slopes below Signal Hill, grew as a living map of those global voyages, where spice and stories arrived from across the Indian Ocean. Its narrow cobbled streets and candy-colored houses are more than a postcard. They are a record of survival and creativity. Families painted their homes in bright hues after emancipation as a loud declaration of freedom and identity, turning private joy into public architecture. Walk past the Awal Mosque and you hear echoes of the 18th century calls to prayer, recitations in languages that once moved with the wind across oceans. In tiny kitchens, Cape Malay recipes, curried fish, pickled sambals, and fragrant boba tea carry cloves, tamarind, and turmeric that trace roots to Indonesia, Malaysia, and East Africa. The neighborhood's tapestry includes artisans, storytellers, and historians who keep oral maps linking Bo-Kaap to the old company's garden and the ships that anchored in Table Bay. Every doorway and veranda holds a memory of forced migration, legal battles over land, and community resilience during the upheavals of the 20th century. Today, walking from Bo-Kaap toward the buzzing harbor, you can follow the scent of spices into markets where generations still sell homemade pickles and spice blends. Local guides will point out subtle details, the carved fascia boards, the sash window shutters, the alley murals that stitch each home into a wider Cape Town story. Beyond the color and cuisine, Bo-Kaap is a living classroom where language, faith, and music collide. From Cape Malay choirs to drum-based rhythms that recall ancestral homelands. In that collision, visitors discover how a neighborhood at the foot of Table Mountain became a microcosm of South Africa's layered history and an ongoing experiment in cultural survival. Conservationists and community activists now work side by side to preserve both the vibrant facades and the fragile living memory inside them. Their efforts remind visitors that Bo-Kaap's colors are not tourist props, but the visible result of the histories that still shape daily life and future claims to the city. When neighborhoods change, the stories gathered in doorways become essential evidence. Narratives that restaurants, museums, and schools are now seeking to collect and protect. Stay with these stories, and Bo-Kaap transforms from a bright corner of Cape Town into a prism through which the entire country's past and present refract and reveal themselves. Pilanesberg National Park sits within the eroded remains of a colossal ancient volcanic complex, forming a dramatic ring of hills and valleys. Do you know Pilanesberg shelters a rare mix of Kalahari bushveld and savannas where the Big Five roam together? This unique geology created natural amphitheaters and seasonal pans that trap water and life after summer rains. Lions, leopards, African elephants, buffalo, and rhinoceros traverse the crater floor alongside smaller antelope and vast flocks of birds. Pilanesberg's diversity is striking because it sits at an ecological crossroads, a place where habitats meet and intermix. Visitors often arrive from Johannesburg or from the glitz of Sun City and step straight into raw, photogenic wilderness. Game drives here can turn from a lone elephant at a waterhole to a stealthy leopard in scrub within minutes. Early morning light paints the ancient ring dikes gold, while hippos snort in shallow pans carved by volcanic forces. Birdwatchers come for rare species like the Karoo coron and migratory raptors that ride thermal currents above the crater. Night drives reveal a different cast: hyenas calling, small nocturnal mammals stirring, and eyes reflecting in your spotlight. Community-led conservation programs in and around Pilanesberg have reintroduced species and balanced tourism with local livelihoods. That model connects Pilanesberg to larger conservation stories across South Africa, echoing efforts in reserves like Kruger. Because Pilanesberg is malaria-free, families and photographers can explore on foot or by vehicle with less worry. Walking trails and guided bushwalks offer intimate encounters with plants, insects, and tracks that tell a living history. During dry months, predators congregate around shrinking waterholes, creating dramatic, documentary-ready scenes of survival and rivalry. In the rainy season, the pans refill and calves are born, turning the crater into a nursery visible from ridgelines. Every visit to Pilanesberg feels connected to geology, to ancient climatic shifts, and to communities who steward the land today. From here, you can easily continue southward to Kruger or west to the Western Cape, tracing South Africa's varied landscapes. Cape Point, towering cliffs of Table Mountain sandstone, plunge into a sea where two great currents collide, creating some of the most dramatic coastal weather in the world. Do you know that Cape Point sits at the tongue of the Cape Floral Kingdom, home to more plant species per square kilometer than almost anywhere else on Earth? The headland's ancient rocks are sculpted by wind and salt into jagged terraces and hidden coves that shelter rare fynbos and endemic succulents. A weather-beaten lighthouse clings to the promontory, its light historically guiding ships far from the treacherous shoals that produced countless shipwrecks. Beneath the surface, the warm Agulhas current meets the cold Benguela, pulling nutrients and marine life into a chaotic, fertile mix that fuels seabird colonies and great shoals of fish. Whale migrations skirt the peninsula each year, and during winter months, southern right whales and humpbacks can be seen breaching against the skyline. The slopes of Cape Point are a mosaic of bright proteas, ericas and restios. Plants evolved to thrive on thin soil and fierce coastal winds. Conservationists here battle invasive species and fire regimes to protect tiny endemic snails and butterflies found nowhere else on the planet. From the vantage near the old lighthouse, you can trace the coastline to the Cape of Good Hope, a rugged promontory often confused with the true southern tip of Africa. That confusion only deepens the mystery here, and it is this mix of myth and raw nature that draws photographers and scientists alike. A short drive and the landscape softens into the sheltered bays of Simonstown, where curious African penguins waddle among boulders and kelp forests. The human stories are woven through the landscape too, from shipwreck tales to the lighthouses that tamed some of the sea's worst moods. Walking the cliffs, you learn how the coast connects. Geology shaping habitat, currents shaping life, and history shaped by both. Every path down to a cove reveals another secret. A nesting gull, a succulent's bloom, or a fossil pressed into stone. Cape Point is not just a dramatic vista but a living classroom, where oceanography, botany, and history converge in plain view. As the road leads you back toward False Bay, the contrast between exposed capes and sheltered beaches becomes a lesson in how place defines life. Here, the drama of cliffs and currents passes the story on to penguin-strewn shores and to vineyards further inland, tying the peninsula's disparate places together. Every visitor who follows that thread leaves with questions about survival, about adaptation, and about the fragile balance that keeps these wild corners alive. Cape Point closes its chapter with a promise. Explore deeper, and you'll find more connections that bind coast, sea, and human endeavor. And the next stop along that ribbon of coast will reveal yet another layer of how South Africa's natural tapestry is stitched together. Blyde River Canyon Nature Reserve harbors one of the world's largest subtropical canyons, its walls draped in emerald vegetation and river-fed waterfalls. Do you know Blyde River Canyon Nature Reserve is home to the three rondavells, geological pillars named for their resemblance to traditional huts and carved over millions of years? The canyon's 26-kilometer gorge of indigenous forest, grassland, and rare cycads that survive from ancient Gondwana float gently along the Blyde River, and you can pass beneath sheer cliffs where secret pools reflect sky-blue streaks and waterbirds wheel. High points like God's Window offer panoramic views where mist spills over the escarpment and reveals a layered landscape stretching to distant Kruger lowlands. It's not just dramatic vistas. The reserve shelters endemic species such as the Transvaal cycad and elusive klipspringer antelope, deft on rocky ledges. Downstream, the canyon's hydrology feeds into lush riparian corridors that sustain ancient yellow wood trees and hang delicate ferns from shaded crevices. Those same waterways link Blyde to other hotspots along the panorama route, creating a living chain that guides visitors from mountain passes to teeming wildlife valleys. Local rock art and fossil finds hint at human and prehistoric ties, turning each viewpoint into a page in the region's long natural history. Guided walks reveal hidden swim holes, medicinal plants, and bird life like the Kinisna lori and sunbird species flashing across the canopy. Photographers chase light that scours ridgelines at dawn, capturing textures and colors rare in so compact a landscape. Adventure seekers follow narrow trails to secret overlooks, while conservationists monitor river health and invasive species to protect this fragile ecosystem. At the canyon's edge, limestone fairy pools and cascades sculpt small amphitheaters where water has written its slow, patient story. From here, it's easy to imagine the canyon as both a geological book and a living corridor connecting plateaus, reserves, and human communities. Blyde's scale and biodiversity make it a crucial jewel in South Africa's natural crown. Yet many visitors never learn how its rivers cradle rare microhabitats. Stay with us, and we'll move from these green cliffs down the river's course, linking Blyde's secrets to the greater tapestry of the region. Along that route, small conservancies and farms intersect with protected land, revealing how people and nature have adapted together across generations. Soon, we'll follow a single drop of water as it travels from Highland Springs through this canyon and beyond, uncovering stories few travelers ever hear. Augrabies Falls National Park is home to one of the planet's few permanent cataracts on the Orange River, where the water plunges 56 meters into an ancient granite gorge, sending mineral-laden spray visible for kilometers. Do you know Augrabies Falls National Park hosts an optical phenomenon, sometimes called the Augrabies glow, mist and mineral particles creating shifting iridescent halos at dawn and dusk that few visitors ever notice. Wind-sculpted cliffs here expose rocks more than 1 billion years old, carved and polished by the river's relentless passage. The gorge walls are streaked with lichens and mineral varnish that shimmer like living tapestries when sunlight slices through the spray. Despite the arid surrounds, Augrabies shelters surprising biodiversity, from klipspringer and dassies sunning on ledges to resident marshal and fish eagles patrolling the channel. Seasonal wildflower carpets on the plains link this park visually and ecologically to the vast Namaqualand blooms that follow the rains. From Augrabies, you can trace the Orange River westward, toward the Atlantic or inland toward the Kalahari, following a living corridor that ties together deserts, coasts, and cultures. The park sits like a hinge between the desert fynbos mosaics of Namaqualand and the red dunes of the Kgalagadi, making it a crossroads few anticipate. Ancient rock engravings and transient campsites around the falls whisper of millennia of Khoisan hunters and pastoralists who read the river's moods. Modern communities still depend on the Orange's flows, and local place names for rapids and pools carry stories of survival and ceremony. Stand on the rim at sunset and the thunder of water becomes a low, permanent drum beneath the desert sky while citrus-scented dust and mineral tang ride the breeze. The wind here composes its own weather, whipping plumes of spray into pillars you can feel before you see the falls. Hidden plunge pools at the gorge base harbor fish and invertebrates uniquely adapted to roar and spray, while succulents and small orchids cling to fissures in the granite. After rain, sheltered crevices erupt with color. Aloes and tiny blooms puncturing the stark rock with life. Conservation here balances access with protecting fragile microhabitats, and local guides unlock vantage points that maps don't show. Hiking trails from the visitor center thread the rim, each outlook turning the river's story into a different chapter you can walk through. But Augrabies' full story is written into the larger tale of the Orange River, and what happens at these falls in flood season reshapes coastlines and communities far downstream. In the next segment, we follow that artery west to see how a single waterfall can ripple into oceans, deserts, and human lives. Stay with us as we uncover the fall's hidden rituals, the science behind its iridescent glow, and the quiet pockets where life persists against improbable odds. Augrabies Falls National Park is more than a drop of water. It's a living archive of time, motion, and survival that may change how you see rivers forever. Kgalagadi Transfrontier Park contains one of the world's largest contiguous red sand dune seas, painted by annual windstorms into rippling landscapes and horizons that melt into heat. Do you know? Kgalagadi Transfrontier Park shelters a genetically distinct population of black-maned lions that roam across hundreds of kilometers of arid savanna. Vast dry riverbeds, called rivers in name, only carve the park, filling rare pools after infrequent rains and drawing wildlife from unimaginable distance. The Kalahari's skeletal trees and whispering grasslands act like a desert magnet, concentrating life into lenses of survival around waterholes. Here, cheetahs ride the thermals and springbok perform aerial displays, while meerkat clans operate with military precision under sun-cracked earth. Nightfall flips the script as temperatures plunge and the Milky Way explodes overhead, revealing constellations that ancient hunter-gatherers once navigated by. Despite brutal conditions, predator and prey have tuned astonishing behaviors. Lions patrol enormous territories, and brown hyenas scavenge with surprising intelligence. Bird life includes rare migrants and endemic species. Red-billed hornbills, cory bustards, and sociable weavers craft communal nests, rivaling small villages. The park is itself a lesson in borders dissolved. It straddles South Africa and Botswana, a single ecosystem protected across an international seam. This transfrontier cooperation allowed migratory corridors to reopen, letting animals reclaim ancestral roots stifled by fences for decades. Rangers here track with minimal intervention, relying on keen local knowledge, spoor reading, and an uncanny sense of timing with the rains. Tourists who venture in learn quickly that silence is currency. The most unforgettable sightings arrive when engines fall quiet, and patience is rewarded. Kgalagadi's nights also host one of the planet's fiercest acoustic theaters, lions roaring, jackals yipping, and wind-shifting sand in a chorus of primal sounds. Conservationists warn that climate change and human pressure threaten these fragile dynamics, making every successful breeding season a story of resilience. Visiting here is less about ticking off Big Five boxes and more about witnessing ecological choreography, where scarcity breeds extraordinary adaptations. Follow the paths from Kgalagadi's salt pans to the neighboring river systems, and you'll see how landscapes and lives interlock in surprising ways. Stay alert to the small miracles, a honey badger's tenacity, an ostrich's bizarre courtship run, or a meteor streaking above the empty plains. Ukhahlamba-Drakensberg Park cradles the amphitheatre, a nearly 5-kilometer basalt cliff that sculpts local weather patterns. Do you know Ukhahlamba-Drakensberg Park holds one of the richest collections of San rock art, mapping ancient stories across caves and overhangs that have survived millennia. Walk these high grasslands, and you cross invisible lines where alpine pine plants exist nowhere else on Earth. Orchids and heathers shaped by thin soils and cold winds. Augrabies Falls plunges from the amphitheatre in drops, so sheer climbers measure mist, not footholds. Beneath that falling water, rare frogs and invertebrates persist in cool streams, species that disappear outside the park's microclimates. Hidden valleys thread into Lesotho's highlands, creating corridors where mountain wildlife and pastoral communities follow age-old routes. Local oral histories and painted panels tell of seasonal migrations, of hunters and herders tracing passes that still guide people today. In winter, the ridges turn white, and in summer, those same slopes burn and regrow, fueling a fire-tolerant mosaic of life. Few visitors notice underground ice lenses and seep springs that act as hidden reservoirs, keeping streams alive through dry months. That secret water supply links the highlands to distant farmlands and cities, connecting mountain ranges to millions who rely on those rivers. Conservationists now read the park as an ecological archive where paintings, fossils, and living species record climate and cultural change. Follow its ridges, and you move from towering cliffs to sandstone escarpments, from sacred shelters to fossil-rich ledges that hint at even older worlds. Every step here peels back layers of time, where geology, art, and biology intersect in surprising ways. Later in this film, we will descend those rivers to the coast, revealing how the Drakensberg's hidden workings shape the wider South African landscape. From the windswept plateau of Table Mountain to the emerald corridors of the Garden Route, South Africa's landscapes read like an atlas of extremes. The same land where lions roam the sunlit savannas of Kruger meets the cool, limestone caves and peaks of the Drakensberg. You can trace history from the stone stoops of Robben Island to the bustling streets of Johannesburg, each chapter shaping the nation's resilient spirit. The Cape Winelands pour out centuries of craft beside rivers that carve the Blyde River Canyon, connecting taste to topography. Along the Garden Route, you pass from coastal dunes to ancient forests, and those forests give way to the elephant trails of Addo, where giants still wander. Durban's warm Indian Ocean shores bring flavors and rhythms that echo inland into the mines and markets of Mpumalanga and beyond. Every bay, mountain, and plain stitches together stories of conquest, liberation, and ongoing renewal that are visible in the people as much as the land. To travel here is to move through time, to stand where continents collided, where cultures converged, and where tomorrow is being written. If you've felt a spark reading these names, imagine standing beneath that star-studded sky, smelling fynbos on the breeze, or hearing an elephant pass at dawn. What begins as a map on a page becomes a mosaic of moments that will stay with you long after you leave, inviting you to return.